Okay, in this video, we're going to look at a different way to create a form, and we're also going to look at some ways to customize it, and we're going to get a little fancier with some of the design, and I'm going to show you how to select different areas of the table so that you can edit the size of these boxes and edit the field names in here. Okay, so first we're going to actually delete this one. So I'm going to close out of it, and I'm going to right click here and just click delete. Then I'm going to say yes, and now that's gone. Okay, so we're going to go into the create tab and go to our forms, and last time we did the auto form, we selected the table we wanted and then we went auto form. This time we're going to use the form wizard here. So click that. It'll ask you what table or query you want to pull from, and we're going to use the table employees, and then it asks you what fields you want. And if you remember, the auto form before just plopped in every field. And this is the form where people will be able to enter in a new employee. So we do want all of these fields except for the employee ID. The employee ID is an auto number, right? And it's generated by Access. And there's nothing that we can do to change it when we're entering all of this information. So we really don't even need to see it because it's just going to confuse people and get in the way. So what we're going to do is add all of the other ones and leave that one off. And you can either do that by selecting these and clicking add like that, or you can double click them, or you can just click this and add everything, and then go back into the employee ID, select it, and remove it from the selected fields. So this one removes everything. This one adds everything, and then these single arrows add or remove one item at a time. So again, we'll take the employee ID out of there, and that way it won't distract our data entry people. So we have all of our info over here, and we can click next. And we're going to go ahead with columnar. That's the kind of most straightforward layout. And you can play with these other layouts as well if they work better for what you're creating. We'll click next. We're going to name this, and this is not a table, so we're going to call it form, FRM, and that's it. Now we can either open the form or we can modify the form's design. And this isn't super important. You can just open it, and then if you don't like it, you can go back into design view and change it. Or we can go to modify, and if we're happy with it, then we can just go to the view. So this isn't critical, it's just what you want to do next. So we'll modify the form's design. That'll take us right into design view. Okay, and there we are in design view. And now you can see it's a little more straightforward rather than having that auto numbers field up here and people trying to click in it, trying to figure out what to do. They're going to go straight to the first name. And I already showed you that you can toggle back and forth between your regular form view, which basically shows you your finished form, and your design view. And I'll show you one other view that you have, which is called layout view. And layout view looks pretty much like your form view, but you can still use it to move objects and rearrange some of this stuff. So this is best for just kind of quick layout changes. But we're going to work primarily in design view because it gives us more editing options. Okay, so first let me show you how to select items in the field that you want to edit. There are a number of ways you can do this. The first way is just by clicking on something. And you'll see it highlights it, and it gives us some options. If we hover over it just right, you'll see a four-way arrow. With the four-way arrow, you can grab the whole thing and move it, and you'll see my little box moves with me to show me where it's going to land. But I'm just going to leave that there for now. You have an up arrow where you can stretch the box vertically. Go ahead and put that back. You have a left to right arrow where you can stretch it horizontally. And you can see you have these tiny little grid dots which guide the edges of your boxes and allows you to kind of line them up with each other. So you can see these have a one dot space between each of them, which is pretty standard. And you'll notice if I grab this box and move it up, the field name comes with it because these two are connected. And let me actually just click Control Z to undo that, put it back where it was. But we can move these independently of each other by grabbing onto the gray box here. So for instance, if I wanted to grab this one and put it on top of that one, then I could do that. Okay, again, I'm going to click Control Z to undo that. You can also click undo up in the left hand corner of your screen as well on your quick access toolbar. So that's how you can move and resize one item. If you want to select multiple items, you can press Shift and click, and you'll have multiple items selected. So now I can move these two together. See? And again, I'll Control Z to put it back. Or if you want to select larger amounts of things, you can left click in the grid and draw a box over everything that you want to select, and everything within that box or touching that box will be selected like that. Okay, you can click on the ruler here and it will select everything that lines up on that line in the ruler. We can do the same thing over here, and you can also click and drag down the ruler and select. So if I wanted to just select these top three, I can do it like that. Or I can click in the grid and highlight them like that. Okay, so those are selections. You can also expand your form horizontally, and you can move your footer down to give more space underneath, or give room to add buttons and things like that. So this is your main detail area where you're going to have all of your entry forms and text boxes. This is your form footer, which will show you things like your page number, and then your header usually has your title, and you can add time and date and other items into the header. So let's go into the header real quick, and we're going to resize this. First I need to give myself some more room so I can reach the bottom of the box. We can just grab the corner of that, stretch it across. Then we can go into this and rename this. Let's call it Employee Details. And then you can see we have some formatting options up here, which if you've ever used Word or even Excel, you see these a lot, and we can just click center. That'll drop it into the center. And we can select that and move it down a little bit if we want. Or we can change the font. We can make it bold, or change the size of the font, etc. You can even change the background. And then since we've done some changes, let's go preview that. And actually that background doesn't really work with that, but you can see the changes. So I'll just click undo, Control Z, bring that background back to normal. Go back to home. Let's go take a look at the property sheet over here. This is where you can change the properties of whatever you have selected. So if we go to format, and you can see this is being called label 12, you can select from different items here, our date of birth label, our office ID label, and that's all these things. Right now it's selected on this. You can go to format. You can see the name is Employee Details with a caption here. You can adjust the width and height and spacing manually if you want, just by typing in a number. You can change other styles. For instance, we can go to the border, and we can create a solid border around it. And you can pick the size of the border. And I'll just show you what that looks like in the form view. See, so that just puts it into a box. Back to design view, and there are all kinds of formatting that you can do here. Okay, let's go on and resize some of our fields down here. We can select all of these and we can bring them all into the same spot, so they're all lined up nicely. And then if we want to move all these together, we can highlight the whole thing and grab onto it and move them all together like this. And then we can select all these and do the same thing and shrink these up. And then we can click into these just like we did with the title in the header. So we can click into here and edit these so they look better. So we'll put a space back in. This is just your caption at this point for this field. It's not the name anymore, so it doesn't need to be joined together. The spaces aren't going to hurt anything at this point. Double click into this one. Phone is fine. Office ID is fine. We'll leave this one for now. Date of birth is fine. And we'll change this to employment status. And we can take all of these and center them a little bit better under our employee details. There we go. And you can also move these just by clicking the left arrow, right arrow, up arrow, or down arrow. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we can edit the text in these fields as well by going to Home and doing the edits up here, or you can do the edits down here in your property sheet as well. Now sometimes in these, in your form view, you'll have little scroll bars on the right here, kind of like you have scroll bars here in your window. It'll often add these in there. So the way to check on that is to go over to here in the Format tab. It says scroll bars here, and in this case we have none selected. But if it says vertical, then I'll show you what it would look like. So you'll have this little scroll bar here. And this is appropriate if you have like a memo field or a description field that's going to be a bigger box. But for a single line like this, those just are kind of confusing. So if you see those on there and you need to get rid of them, just go to your scroll bars over here and go to none. That'll take care of that. So we've talked about how to select different elements within the form. If you want to select the entire form, you click in this little box in the upper left-hand corner. And you'll notice now over here on the drop-down, it's referring to the entire form. And then all of your tabs refer to different ways that you can edit the entire form. So you can go in here and you can change the width manually if you wanted to. So if I want this to be 7 inches, let's do that. See how it expanded. I'll go ahead and click Control-Z to put it back. See, now it's back to 5.125 inches. You'll notice this has an option for scroll bars as well. And in this case, you do want to have the scroll bars, because if this doesn't fit the screen, then the user will need to scroll to get to the information. And you have all kinds of other options that you can edit in this area. One thing I want to point out is this box on the left is the label name for this entry form, and this field here is the actual field in your table. And when something is entered in here, this is going to actually go into your table. And you can edit the properties or view the properties of this by selecting it and then going to Data, and you'll notice it asks for your control source, and it's referring to first name. And if you do the drop down, you'll see it has a list of all the fields in our table. If I was to click on a different one of these, then it would refer to something else. For instance, if I clicked on last name, now when they type in their first name, it's going to actually go into the last name field, and that would make a mess. So you want to make sure that these are referring to the right fields in the right tables. When you use the form wizard, it automatically does that. But if you, for some reason, you accidentally change this, and for instance, you can go in, you can change this, and if I hit enter, now it's showing an error because it's not really referring to anything valid. So that's just a note to make sure you get those referring to the right places in your table. So that's how you rename your fields and select items and readjust your sizes and your formatting and all that.